A resilient comeback win for the Giants, but almost certainly too little, too late. They've dug themselves too deep of a hole. Still, positives to take away from this game as it reflects towards 2025, and more questions to be answered as we look ahead.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show for 5.5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And coming up on today's show, we will talk about the Giants' resilient 5-4 win over the Brewers. It was a nice game for this team. Logan Webb gave up 4 runs in, I think it was 5 innings, and so, he wasn't perfect his last time out. 2 runs in 8 innings, and they found a way to lose to the White Sox. And here, 4 runs in 5 innings, allowed 2 homers, which is super rare, 3 walks, which is rare for him as well. And the offense picked him up. And let me just point out, I love doing this. Giants with runners in scoring position, guess what they were? They scored 5 runs in the game. 0 for 9. Okay, so tell me why that is the most important or like some sort of crucial metric there. I get it. If you do well in that category, you're going to score runs. If you're like 9 for 9, it means you scored a lot of runs probably. But at the same time, it is not the end all be all. You can go 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position, as they did, and score 5 runs and win a game against a first place team. So it is not the end all be all. Power, if you can hit for power, you're in scoring position in the batter's box, and anybody on first is in scoring position on a homer anywhere on the bases, and they'll often score from first on a double. And so I just don't care for that metric very much. And we will get into that question later because, look, it matters. It's like it's a stat that kind of tells a story, but it's not one that's predictive, and it's not always even one that matters in the course of a game. You can score a bunch of runs without hitting with runners in quote-unquote scoring position. So anyway, a nice win. It improves the Giants' record to 67-66, which is nothing to write home about. But at the same time, it is above 500. Okay, small victories here we're taking. But Giants find themselves still 5.5 back as the Braves have kind of caught fire. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Giants are 6-4. So even going 6-4, they've lost a couple games in the standings over their last 10 games. And when we talk about 10 games, that's more than a third of what's left to play for the Giants. The Braves have 30 games left. The Giants have 29. And to be 5.5 back when you lose the tiebreaker, that means if the Braves are in fact that third wildcard team and the Giants end up tied with them, somehow making up 5.5 games, they would still lose. And so when you start doing the math here, perhaps some of you are just like, move on, don't even talk about this. But I'm going to talk about it until it's truly mathematically impossible, or the odds are even significantly worse than they are now. But for the Giants with 29 games left, let's just say they get to 87 wins. That would take 20 more wins. And so that would be 20-9. So if the Giants go 20-9 the rest of the way and get to 87 wins, the Braves have 72 right now, and they have 30 games left. And so they could go 15-15 and end up with 87 wins, and the Giants would miss the playoffs. So you could go 20-9. The team you're chasing could go 15-15, and you still don't make it. that, of course, assumes that the Braves aren't passed by. Well, no, it doesn't assume that. Like either the Diamondbacks or Padres, who are 3 games ahead of the Braves, would have to fall back. And anyway, it's just the probability is so low for the Giants to make the playoffs at this point. It's 2.5% according to Fangraphs. Fangraphs projects the Giants to finish with 81.4 wins. So just, imagine another 500 season. They had never finished 500 in their history until a couple years ago, and they're kind of steamrolling towards another 500-ish finish, so definitely could finish right at 500 again, which is where they seem to be stuck year after year, the last, except the 107-win season. So overall, big picture frustration, but there definitely have been positives to take away from the season, most notably the emergence of young players such as Heliot Ramos and Tyler Fitzgerald. And now, all of a sudden, what we're seeing from Grant McCray, who went 1 for 3. He did strike out 2 times again, so his strikeout rate remains high. 1 for 3 with a walk, and that one hit was just another really impressive home run. So this is how the Giants won this game, was with home runs. They hit 3. Matt Chapman is who I meant to say, hit 1. Grant McCray hit 1, and Mike Yastrzemski hit a big one in the 7th, a 2-run homer to give the Giants the lead. So McCray, just worth kind of focusing and dialing in on him, is hitting .308 with a .357 on base and .615 slugging 11 games into his major league career. It is, there's a lot of wackiness when you look at the numbers. His strikeout rate is 40.5%, which is about double the major league average. Not quite, but almost. And it's just way too high. You can't be striking out that much and having consistent success. It's taken the fact that he's got a .474 batting average on balls in play, which won't last. I mean, that's coming down by at least 125 points eventually. But what stands out is a .308 isolated power. Like, that just means when he's getting hits, he's hitting for extra bases. And we've seen it. I mean, he's already got 3 homers in 11 games. And his barrel percentage is way up there at 18.2%. And then, I mean, it adds up to 0.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement in just 11 games. And so when you look at the leaders on the Giants for the whole season, 0.6 is up there with, it's above Thairo Estrada in 94 games. It's right up there about where Jorge Soler did in 93 games. And a lot of it is because Jorge Soler wasn't contributing anything, of course, defensively as a DH. And McCray, on the other hand, is playing a good center field, in my opinion. And defensive runs saved agrees with +2 in 98 and a third innings out there in center. Outs above average still has him at 0. So, center field, the bar is high. The major league center fielders are good. And, I've been impressed. But in terms of these metrics, it kind of takes a while for them to have an opinion and to do an evaluation. And it also takes us a while with just watching with our eyes to see, it took a while before we even saw him make a really competitive throw. And then I was like blown away by how strong of an arm he has. And so, yeah, I mean, his sprint speed comes in at 68th percentile, and they haven't pegged him at anything really defensively yet. I don't know. Maybe it's too small of a sample. 30 attempts, success rate of 90% on making plays with an estimated success rate of 89. So that's where it's coming up with average kind of results. And it hasn't judged his arm yet. I just think he hasn't made enough quote unquote competitive throws to judge his arm. And then one other thing that we haven't even talked about much on this show that just recently kind of came online with StatCast data is like bat speed. And his bat speed is coming in at like 74th percentile. And so that's a big deal to kind of look out for, is how hard are guys swinging? How fast can they swing? And for him, it's an above average bat speed, even though he's a young player. And so he's the latest guy to watch, and we get another 29 games to potentially watch him play. And that's going to be big given just for like looking towards 2025. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to turn our attention to some more mailbag questions that we started to get to yesterday. And we'll get to the Giants' hitting strategy and if it's what's kept them out of the postseason. And we'll also talk about the hiring of Bob Melvin and do I think it was a mistake and much more. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, myself included. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. So for me, I'm playing today. You can see on YouTube if you're watching, I've got Heliot Ramos more than 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs, and William Contreras of the Brewers more than 1.5 total bases. He is facing a lefty tonight in Kyle Harrison. So that is 30. I'm playing $37.50 with a chance to win to pay $150. So anyway, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the mailbag questions, more mailbag questions left over from yesterday. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down this game. You know, the Giants still technically alive here. We do have a month of baseball to play. Crazier things have happened. We'll see if the Giants can find a way to win. They basically need to win like every day, and they need to hope and pray that the other teams like the Braves lose. Braves are playing a good team in the Twins, so there is a chance to gain a game here if things can go your way. Thank you for making Locked on Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked on MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked on MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So I'm going to turn our attention, like I said, to some mailbag questions. Michael says, do you think the Giants' hitting strategy has kept them out of playoff contention? Their inability to hit with runners in scoring position and to score runs has cost them several games. There seems to be no emphasis on contact hitting to just put the ball in play. Ferocious swings no results. So I've kind of answered this question before in a mailbag, but not everyone listens every day, even though you can. We are Monday through Friday, but it bears repeating. You just heard me go on a soapbox about runners in scoring position. They literally were 0 for 9 yesterday and scored 5 runs and won. That is kind of the exception to the rule, I will concede for sure. But at the same time, it's a question that is definitely worth pondering because it has had an effect this season. The Giants hitting with quote unquote runners in quote unquote scoring position. I like to give it the quote unquote. So we go to leverage or we go to situation and runners in scoring position and update, and we will see that the Giants as a team are third worst in weighted runs created plus. So this is like an advanced metric. It's not batting average with runners in scoring position. It's weighted runs created plus with runners in scoring position, and only 2 teams have a worse one than the Giants. The White Sox are last. The Cardinals are second to last. And, you do find some pretty good teams in the bottom third. The Braves are in the bottom third. The Rays are in the bottom third. I know the Rays aren't having a great season. Dodgers are only 17th. The Twins are 18th. The Orioles are 16th. The Astros are 15th. Number 1 is Arizona. Number 2 is Detroit. You can find, random not great teams like Seattle in the top half, even though they've had a horrible time scoring runs. So this is just, there's not a high correlation here necessarily between team strength and even necessarily run scoring and this category. So yeah, it's not good to be third worst. And Arizona being number 1, Arizona, you would definitely love to be near the top in this category, but there's not a lot of correlation year to year, even with individual players. And then, of course, individual players make up a team. And so this is just kind of not a sticky metric. Like this year, the Giants may be 28th, and next year they could be 8th. It just doesn't really it's not necessarily a strategy as much as it is there's randomness involved as to when you get your hits. Also, it's not necessarily how you score your runs. If you lead the league in homers, you can probably do pretty poorly with runners in scoring position and still score a lot of runs. So we are going to look up runs per game on Baseball Reference just to kind of give you a reference. Yeah, 2024 runs per game, and people always give me a hard time, but I'm not going to go through and find exactly the median runs per game because I get it. Like sometimes this number is skewed by a big game where you score I don't think they've had any 20 run games this year, but the median matters too. Like what is the median number of runs per game you're scoring? But on average, the Giants are at 4.31 runs per game. Major League average is 4.42. So we're talking 0.11 runs per game below average. But also keep in mind they play in a difficult environment in which to hit at Oracle Park. And so by weighted runs created plus, which takes such things into account, the Giants offense comes in at 99, meaning 1% below average. So it's not like they've been and again, weighted runs created plus is not caring about clutchness, right? It's just overall and assuming average production in all average kind of context neutral production. But when it comes to bottom line runs scored, they have been a little bit below average, but it doesn't have a numeric ranking, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They are 14th worst. So there are 13 teams below them. So they're right around in the middle. They're basically tied with the Braves in runs per game, if you can believe it. And yeah, the Braves are whatever they are, 12 games over 500. And they play in an easier park in which to hit. And they have a lot of players you would consider better than the Giants players. Braves score 4.33 runs per game. The Giants are at 4.31. So it's just not that different. And then when you talk about philosophically because I'm not kind of answering your question yet, but we can even like filter with runners in scoring position. I think I can check like how much contact. I actually don't think I can do that. I don't have the tools to check what kind of like how often do they make contact with runners in scoring position, et cetera. But let's just look at overall what do they do with just in general in terms of contact and in terms of I don't know. I mean, I guess you're kind of just asking about contact, right? And so overall, the Giants offense ranks 12th highest in terms of contact. Like when they swing, their contact rate is about 78%, 77.6%. So more than 3/4 of the time when they make a swing, there is contact made, and that is the 13th or 12th highest rate in baseball. Dodgers are a little worse than the Giants in this category. Another example that it's not all about just making contact. It's about what are you doing with that contact, and also about are you chasing, and mostly what are you doing with that contact. And so, yeah, I mean, they're 12th highest. I do not have the ability to search what is this number with runners in scoring position. I would love to give you that number, but I don't know how to search for that. Their rate of contact on pitches in the strike zone ranks 14th at 85.8%. So when they swing at a pitch in the zone, they make contact 86% of the time. That ranks 14th. And when they swing at a pitch out of the strike zone, they make contact 56% of the time, which is ranking 18th. You just don't want to be swinging at pitches outside the zone in general. They swing 1, 2, 3 for the fourth least among any team. But you look at the Diamondbacks are the closest team to the Giants. Actually, Seattle is one closer, but the Diamondbacks swing a little bit less often than the Giants, 46.1% of the time. Actually, I lied. The Diamondbacks are, in fact, the closest team to the Giants. And the Diamondbacks have been the top run-scoring team in baseball. And so they score 5.33 runs per game, the D-backs. And they swing. So this is not a metric where it's like, oh, the Giants swing. They don't swing enough. The team that's closest to them scores the most runs per game of any team. How about zone swing percentage? The Giants only swing at pitches in the strike zone the 23rd most. D-backs are 27th most. So it's like swinging, there's all these theories out there in the sabermetric community that teams should basically swing less. And that's kind of backed up by looking at some of the top teams in terms of not swinging include the Brewers, the least, the Yankees, second least, and the Diamondbacks, fourth least. And those are three of the top teams in baseball right there. And you also, in terms of the most swings, the Marlins and Rockies are in the top three. And those are the two of the worst teams in baseball. So anyway, and then chasing, this is a big one. The Marlins and Rockies are number 1 and number 2 in terms of chase rate. And the Giants chase the 6th least. And Arizona is, again, the closest to the Giants at, the 7th least in terms of chasing. And so really it's been like the type of contact more than it's, and again, this is not situational. I would love to know how does this change in like pressure situations. But something we can look at just really quickly before we move on is like clutch. And so like win probability, we can look, there's this Fangraphs metric called clutch, and they define it how much better or worse a player does in a high leverage situation than he would have done in a context neutral environment. Arizona, not surprisingly, number 1. So it takes, like I said, it tells a story when you're clutch, but it's not predictive of next year, like necessarily at all. And for the Giants, they're almost right in the middle at they're 18th. The Dodgers are 20th. The Dodgers have been a little more or a little less clutch, I should say. So have the Phillies. The Phillies are right below the Giants, and the Phillies have been really good, and the Dodgers have been obviously really good. So that's not really been the issue in terms as far as I see it. So what has been the issue? It's not really been the hitting. The hitting's been mediocre. The defense has been pretty good, but if you look at the pitching, and they have a 4.17 ERA, which ranks 19th, and you play at Oracle Park half the time. So that's just that, to me, runs allowed is actually the biggest problem, not hitting strategy and all that. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, more questions and answers, including, was hiring Bob Melvin a mistake? We'll get into it in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. The benefits, there are numerous, like staying hydrated while traveling, going to summer festivals, or after a night out. Blast off with iconic summer flavors like Popsicle Firecracker, which you can see right here on your screen if you're on YouTube, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Find all your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada. Also, how about watermelon, which you can also see here right on your screen. And I've got some Liquid IV watermelon right here in my glass. I've been drinking it every day. Truly delicious and highly recommended. Tear, pour, live more, 1 stick and 16 ounces of water. Yum, I want more of that. Hydrates better than water alone. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Game Time. Now, I love going to live events, no matter what kind. Concerts, Giants games on the road, theater, comedy. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier than ever. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, which is something I've definitely done before. And for me, I love having panoramic views from my seat in the app before I buy. That's big when I'm going to a new venue. And also the Game Time guarantee is my favorite. You know this, I've said it 1,000 times. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more questions and answers. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers breaking down Freddie Peralta versus Kyle Harrison. Every day, kind of a must-win for the Giants, even though there's very little hope regardless. But hey, if you can go 29-0, which they won't, but if you can, then they'd probably be in. So hey, until you're mathematically eliminated, I'll always hold out that hope. 2%, whatever, it happens 2 out of 100 times. It feels like the Giants are due for a 2 out of 100 situation, but of course that's not how it works. But it does happen. Anyway, moving along, let's get to the next question, which comes from Garrett, who says, not including making the playoffs, how else would you classify this year as successful? Do you see any other highly regarded prospects getting called up in September? Reggie Crawford, Carson Whisenhunt, etc. And so it's hard. I think that no matter what, missing the playoffs, I'm not going to categorize this year as successful, but that doesn't mean there aren't good things that happened. And I already think it's happened. Like, unless these guys completely fall apart in the last month of the season, Heliot Ramos and Tyler Fitzgerald, those two alone, as I said yesterday, Patrick Bailey, you add him. I know he hasn't hit well, but if you don't look at Baseball Reference WAR, which doesn't do a good job of capturing catcher defensive value in its WAR calculation. Fangraphs does a better job and basically has Bailey as the best catcher in baseball, the best defender in baseball. And if you look at the StatCast framing metrics, the numbers bear it out. And also look at the running game and look at how teams run wild on the Giants when Bailey's not there. And when he is there, it's a different story altogether. So that's 3/9 or 1/3 of a lineup with Bailey, Ramos, and Fitzgerald emerging as like everyday type of players in the last couple of seasons. And this year to have two more of them, like you can't just have one in Bailey. So two more young players with, 6 years of team control emerging as regulars is a big deal. And then also, as I am saying, like Grant McCray, if he could have a like really good month of September, in addition to what he's already done in August, then all of a sudden you're talking about maybe three position players, including two outfielders. They've had a really hard time developing outfielders. Ramos, the first, 25 or younger homegrown, I forget exactly what it was, but he's hit 20 home runs, and it's been a long time since I think a Giants outfielder 25 or younger has done that. And all of a sudden, McCray, he's already got three. He's showing off a lot of tools. And so if you could have three young position players emerge this year looking like regulars, that would be a huge success. And do I see any other highly regarded prospects getting called up in September? Reggie Crawford, I don't believe is healthy. The last I checked, he's not been pitching. Carson Whisenhunt wasn't pitching either, but he's back. I just kind of got an update on him recently. And so we could see Carson Whisenhunt, but he returned on the 27th, which was just yesterday. I'm lying. He started on Saturday, almost, about half a week ago. Allowed 3 runs, 4 hits, and a walk while striking out 4 over 3 innings. He had a foot issue that kept him out for quite a while. So, we could see him. We could see him in the month of September as rosters expand just to get a look, especially with Robbie Ray landing on the injured list. He's definitely a guy along with Tristan Beck, but he's not, one of the highly regarded prospects. Reggie Crawford, he had fatigue in his left arm in June. Let me see the last time that he played. Yeah, he hasn't pitched since June 5th. So I do not think we're going to see Reggie Crawford in the major leagues this season. They probably just shut him down at this point, unless he's feeling great. But yeah, I think Whisenhunt is probably the most likely of, and we could also see the return of like Marco Luciano or Luis Matos. I think Wade Meckler is a guy who could get a look here in the final month of the season. And beyond that, there's not really anyone who's standing out as a potential call-up on quick glance. So, yeah. But some of those outfield, like Luciano, Matos, Meckler, and Whisenhunt, definitely in the mix to get a look in the final month of the season. So the last question is from Steve, who says, I know Stephen Vogt was floated around as a potential choice for manager. Knowing what we know now, would you want him or Melvin? My understanding is that you have been pretty pro Melvin, but not sure how much the recent mishaps with the bullpen have affected your views. I definitely am not going to let, a couple mishaps with the bullpen affect my views dramatically. Every manager is going to make decisions that are like Bruce Bochy drove me nuts all the time with a lot of his decisions, especially when the game started to shift towards a more analytical approach. And he very much did not really manage in an analytical way. And let's not forget, they started to stink starting in 2017. It was only a couple of years, but 17 and 18 were not good years. Obviously, a lot of it had to do with the roster, but also Bochy was certainly not maximizing the roster. There were a lot, Tenard Span had no business leading off against lefties or even playing against lefties, but there he was every day, for example. And Stephen Vogt, like I don't look at what Cleveland has done and say that's because of Stephen Vogt. And I don't look at what's gone wrong in San Francisco and say that's because of Bob Melvin. I do think Melvin has generally done a pretty good job. Players love playing for Bob Melvin. That matters, I think. It also matters for recruiting players, and that was one of the big things they talked about. I think players would love playing for Stephen Vogt too, frankly, because he's universally loved. But I don't look at the Guardians record and the Giants record and say, therefore, they should have hired Stephen Vogt. I do think having someone who was like a veteran manager made a lot of sense after Kapler really didn't work out. And so ultimately, I think that the failures of the season don't land on Bob Melvin. I don't think they super land on the front office either. I think it was just the play on the field and just not performing in clutch situations has played a big role. But and then like some unexpected pitching problems. We thought this rotation could be very, very good, and they dealt with a lot of injuries, and the bottom line pitching results haven't been good enough. So I think hiring Melvin still, I don't have a problem with it. A lot of people do, but I personally think he is a good manager, and players like playing for him, and that could continue to help them in free agency moving forward. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, breaking down Game 2 in Milwaukee and getting to more mailbag questions if they are relevant. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. Helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.